This is a Plastic Knights video, reviewing games that came out a long time ago. This video probably contains spoilers. You have been warned.
Have you ever wanted to make video games before? Have you ever looked around and said to yourself, gee, I could do better than the crap on Steam Greenlight? Do you know about the history of video games? What if I told you there's a game that combines both your ambition for creating video games and tests your knowledge of video game development history?
What? Tell me more, you say?
That game is called Game Dev Tycoon. Game Dev Tycoon is Greenheart Games' game-making simulator tycoon strategy business casual and yet not casual build it now run it simulator game. Begin as a humble basement dweller as you try to create games that are good enough to help you pay rent and breathe enough financial life into your attempts at making another game. I can see a YouTuber simulator game being developed.
Oh my god!
So how do you play? You make games by picking a topic, genre, platform, and title for your project, and then, over the course of development, you decide what features are to be put in place, and how much time you spend on the different aspects of the game. Making a text-based adventure game? Maybe engine and gameplay aren't as important as story. Making a city simulation game? Maybe story isn't as important. You decide. No, that doesn't really work here, because this game has a right way of making games. During the development of your game, you'll generate 4 resources: research, technology, design, and bugs. While you're making the game, your characters gain more knowledge about the genre and topic combination, generating research points. Research points can be spent on unlocking new topics and game engine features, for when you want to start building your own game engines to create bigger and better games. Tech and design are the 2 other resources you'll have to manage, albeit indirectly. Here's where the game gets a little complicated. As you progress from basement-dwelling indie developer to AAA-level game studio, you'll have to hire people and get training for different things to increase your tech and/or design numbers per character. The higher the tech, the more tech points you make. The higher the design level of the person you hired, the more design points they'll generate. The more tech and design generated over the course of making the game, the higher quality the game. But that doesn't necessarily translate into the game being a critical success. The bigger the game, the more time you have to generate more points to create a more technically sound game. All these things, along with trying different combinations of genres and themes, help to make better games and unlock new research topics and game engine features down the road. Also, by using existing features, you'll unlock better versions of that thing as you level up. So if you make 2D games, you'll get better at 2D graphics development. As you do new things like different topic and platform combinations, you generate more research. But doing new things makes you have more bugs, because you've never done it before. As you find your niche and start releasing the same kinds of games over and over again, you create less research, but you also have less bugs. Then you have to decide at the end whether you hold on to the game a few more weeks to get rid of the bugs, or risk the impending wrath of the public and release the game as is, in order to rake in the much needed cash. Then later on you have the option of either patching the game for a bit of money after the game isn't really profitable anymore in order to make your fans happy, or you can just ignore it. That's basically the game. You make game engines to make your games have access to more features, like multiplayer or being able to save your progress. If you're smart and you fire most of your team sometime in the mid-game, and are able to afford a tech genius, you'll be able to open a hardware lab and release your own console. Or maybe you go the design route and unlock your own digital distribution center, run your own E3 conference, or have an awesome marketing campaign. You decide! But the answer is, so what's wrong with it? Well, a couple things. But before we continue, we have to talk about how this game has the term feature creep written all over it. So you want to make a game about making video games. What things should be in this game? Obviously, there are lots of things that aren't part of Game Dev Tycoon. And you know what? That's mostly okay. You can't really make DLC. The game doesn't meaningfully reward you for making a great game engine that you can sell to other game companies, which would eliminate id Software and Epic Games from the list of studios you can roleplay as. There aren't any competitors or a general real-world economy you have to worry about. Even the digital distribution platform doesn't ensure your place in perpetuity. And yet this game doesn't feel like it needs those things to be complete, and I don't want to underplay how much content is actually here. At the same time, however, those missing things are what you'll be thinking about while playing. At first glance, this game acts like a casual game. A really complicated casual game. The history the player plays through is an idealized version of video game development, beginning in the 1980s and running until the early 2010s or so. Names have been changed to avoid copyright and trademark issues, and it's pretty fun to see what the names have been changed to and the amount of work that went into recreating some of the events that happened in the past, like the
Dreamcast
system tanking or the rise of the
PlayStation.
This coincides with the fact that the player has to make decisions about what platform they are going to make games for, and Game Dev Tycoon rewards you for making smart choices based on the history of console developments and releases. But there are things that are missing, like the video game market crash brought on by Atari, review lobbying and the role of the press in game development, the rise of free-to-play games, and oh so much more. It's an idealized version of history that invites the player to try their hand at creating games in this alternative, nice account of the past. To try their hand quite a few times, that is. The game has two progression systems, one of which carries over through multiple playthroughs. You start out not knowing what topic and genre combinations are good. Sometimes things that sound good to the player end up being terrible, especially early on. You also don't know what to focus on during development either. Once the game has been made and released, you can generate a game report to see some tips on what you did right and what you did wrong. As you try new things, you'll get more information from the game reports that will make their way into actually showing you what bars to increase when during development. When you start a new game, all the information you gained from the previous playthrough is still there. This means it will take a few tries before you have a successful run. Because you don't understand what to do when, the game isn't necessarily intuitive enough for you to figure it out on your own. The other progression system comes in the form of the game itself. You start out working from your parents' basement until you amass enough cash to move into an office building. Create games to unlock the ability to make sequels, medium, large, and AAA sized games, extra genre combinations, and this is where the game gets good and the lack of certain things being around starts to show. It takes a long time to unlock sequels, and there are no franchises per se in the base game. The reason for this is game balancing, to put it simply. If you could make sequels earlier, you'd generate less research, and that would make it really difficult to progress later in the game. Research needed to be tweaked, if not eliminated entirely. You can have all the money in the world and not be able to research something, because you don't have enough research points. This is my biggest complaint with the game. There are certain things you can do to mitigate this, for research as an idea is a good concept that got executed a little wrong. The lack of franchises is strange, coupled with the lack of competitors means you can't sell licensing to other companies. The other feature that isn't here is the game engine selling. You can sell your game engine after a while, but you'll get a tiny amount of money for it. You basically can't create the Unreal Engine and have everyone use it. All of these things are not necessarily bad things about the game, and we have to give the creators some credit on the fact that it doesn't feel like they caved to feature bloat. I mean, this is a casual game, right? Well, I think it's a casual game. But then why does it want you to worry about all these different things all the time? I would say this is the main issue with the game. It's not sure if it wants to be a casual game, or an in-depth whitewashed alternate history video game making simulator. The graphics are cute, and the dialogue is cute, but it requires multiple playthroughs before you can even begin to make it to the end. Because of the way the game is set up in terms of features, if you know anything about video game development, history, or that game companies don't exist in a vacuum, you might start focusing on what's not in the game. But if this were a casual game, that would be okay. As an in-depth simulator, those missing features are felt. This is not a bad game by any means. In fact, I think it's definitely better than its Metacritic score would have people believe. But it takes a bit of trial and error because the RNG will smack you in the face at times, and it takes a while to figure out why. It also takes time to understand what the different genres require and how a lot of the mechanics all work together. And sure, Disney's Lion King is to Kimba the White Lion, as Game Dev Tycoon is to Game Dev Story. And I don't think it really matters. This game is fun, and there are mods available that will give you most of what you want anyway. The devs are pretty nice, and I spent way too much time talking about this game. I didn't even mention the anti-piracy mechanic they put in.
my back. Huh?